10, 9, 8.
Gentlemen, friends, and family, patriots all over our country. That's under God. Welcome to tonight's Red America First Town Hall, the nation's most engaging platform where we, the people, run the show. Red for the blood of Christ, America First policies and candidates. I'm your host for tonight, Michael Velarde. Welcome to Town Hall by Red America First, where the spirit of our nation's founders meets the challenges of tomorrow. For 3 years, we stood as a beacon of unity and strength, draped in the symbolic red of our conviction, dedicated to America First policies and the Christian values that our nation was founded on. Here we gather not just to discuss, but to act, empowering our community through education, engagement, and the relentless pursuit of truth. With our boots on the ground, tackling corruption head on, and our weekly town hall igniting the conversations that matter. We're at the forefront of a movement to ensure a free, prosperous, and vibrant future for all Americans. Join us as we blend heritage with vision, shaping a stronger, more unified America. Tonight, we've got a powerhouse guest, Eric Lionheart. He's a retired Air Force combat controller, Bronze Star with Valor recipient, and a 15-year veteran who took down the terrorists with the elite emergency services team and even guarded Air Force One. Now living in Texas, Eric's the president of the First There Foundation, battling suicide among his teammates and keeping a sharp eye on our southern border. Get ready for a no-holds-barred conversation. Let's dive in. But first, we have exciting announcements to make. Don't forget our newly started podcast every Monday at 8 p.m. Pastor's Point. The goal is to teach and encourage others about the truth of Jesus Christ. Our goal is to share the gospel of Jesus and grow in the knowledge of the Word of God and encourage all to adhere to biblical principles. We need some support from our viewers and those who have the will to help. Our team relies on all the support of our viewers and donors. We appreciate the help. Even $20 can help us on our national mission. Please visit givesendgo.com/RedAmericaFirst/donate. For those joining the live stream, we're looking to grow our live panel. Panel members engage directly with guest speakers like Jason Ho and participate in the famous state-to-state intel round. Sign up at RedAmericaFirst.com. Add your state that you will want to be a panel member of. Everyone, let's start with prayer. Co-host, tag head, Pastor's Point associate. We're going to go with Dr. Gray. You're going to lead us in prayer. And if all the Red American First members can bow their heads, thank you, Pastor.
Yes, let us pray. Heavenly Father, Lord God, we just thank you for today. We thank you for all you've given us. We thank you for the very fact, Lord Jesus, that we all are a part of this great nation that we've been born into, where we can come freely to worship, to serve, to praise you, Lord God, to fellowship with each other.
Thank you.
And Lord, as we come to this place today, as we join together in fellowship and community and unity and commune with you, Lord, we ask you to lead us, to guide us. Let us be about having your kingdom first in our lives. Let it be where let us do what you want us to do. Let us say what you want us to say. Let all we are, all we have, all we do be for, about, because of you, Lord God. And we just thank you for this. We ask you, Lord, to guide us, lead us, and let us have a good time tonight, Lord. And we do lift up all those who are in charge of our country now. We ask you to be with them, bless them, Father, encourage them, Lord. Most importantly, we ask you to soften their hearts, speak into their spirits, and draw them unto you, Father, so they follow your will, your way. In the holy and precious name of Jesus Christ, we say, amen.
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 Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor. Valerie Weiss, co-founder of Red America First, will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mike. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Valerie. And now we're going to have Wendy. Wendy Stockhausen is going to do the national anthem.
She's muted.
Wendy?
at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you,
Amazing
Wendy.
stuff, Wendy.
That was inspiring. What a beautiful introduction to start this interview with Eric Lionheart. Welcome to our podcast, our town hall. We're honored to have you, Eric. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Well, Eric, let's start. You served 15 years as an Air Force combat controller, earning a Bronze Star with Valor for hunting terrorists and leading high-stakes mission with the Emergency Services Team. After transitioning to civilian life, you said that it was tough to adjust, something that led to founding the First There Foundation. What was the biggest challenge you faced leaving the elite world behind, and how does it fuel your mission to support your teammates today?
There was a couple of things. Trust was one. Your comrades, the type of individuals that form those small, very skilled teams. And in the outside world, it is very different. Everybody comes from different walks of life, but same as the military. But out here, it's just the goal is very different for every single person. And then leaving those teams. I had really bad survivor's guilt. I lost a couple of friends. In fact, it was the anniversary of one of my team leaders that was killed in Jalres, which is up in the Wardak province. He was killed on March 11th. He was only 28 years old, and I had really bad survivor's guilt from that. After that, I, fell into some pretty heavy depression, which I didn't understand as a young guy leaving the military, and it was just it was a perfect storm to put it quite frankly. Uh, and trying to find a job, trying to put the skills that I had in the military to civilian life was very difficult. And a few years ago, another good friend of mine, after serving 20 years, he left the military 6 months later, he committed suicide. It was during COVID, so we couldn't say goodbye to him. And we finally did in 2021. Probably about 4 or 5 months later, another teammate of mine was going to commit suicide. In fact, he was on the phone with me, and that's how First There was born. It was First There is the combat control motto, and I figured that was a great motto for our foundation.
So in summary, the First There Foundation was born out of a tragedy after your teammate Chris as Rush took his own life in 2020, and you made it your mission to eradicate suicide among combat controllers. What gaps do you see in how military supports special operators in service, and what's one practical step you've taken through the foundation to make a difference?
I think talking about it, a lot of us don't want to bother other teammates with our troubles. We were so self-sufficient when we were at war, and then when we come out of the military, we don't want to bother another guy and tell him about our problems, even though they're our brothers. In my case, especially, I felt, some of these guys are married, they have kids, and they're going through their own tribulations, and I just didn't want to add to it. So we start to isolate. So talking about our problems and saying it's okay, me coming on platforms like this and saying, hey, I was an operator and I suffered from it and I almost put a gun to my head. It hopefully sheds some light on some people that are in those same spots and letting them know they're not alone.
Wow. So you're living in Texas now. I mean, you're on the front lines of what's happening on our southern border too. I mean, with your 20 years plus experience of security operations, everything from protecting Air Force One to analyzing border security legislation, what's the most pressing issue you've seen down there today? And how does it compare to the threats you faced as a combat controller?
Well, yeah, in 2022, right when I launched first there, I was working for the state of Texas and the Health and Human Services Commission, and I can stand watching our borders just eh, completely wide open. So I ran for Congress in 2022. Unfortunately, I lost, but I figured I can't fight with a rifle, but I can fight with a pen, and it was a good insight into politics. The border, thank God, under President Trump has done a lot better. I've looked at some of the numbers, and they're showing the least amount of interactions, illegals to border patrol. So it goes to show right off the bat the leadership that he has. So I'm glad that this new administration has taken the charge and had the courage to stand up for securing America's border.
Yeah, no, it's very important. I ran for Congress too. It was a good experience for me when I did it in 2020. But without raising like $2 million, it's very hard to win.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely need some deep pockets. It was good insight.
Right. No, it's true. Those watching our live stream, we're looking for more podcast panel members. If you're able to interact directly with guest speakers and participate in the famous state to state intel round, we'll welcome you guys coming in. Next question here. You've been vocal about the importance of maintaining high standards in security and military roles, even criticizing moves to lower them. From your vantage point in Texas, what's one concrete change you propose to strengthen security along our southern border, and how does your background in emergency management and law enforcement shape that view?
Well, yes, you're right. I think lowering the standards and especially special operation units just degrades their capabilities as far as our southern border. I think it was a great move in fact, when I ran for Congress, they said we should label cartels as a terrorist group.
Yes,
That way it would allow us to have our boys go over there and take care of business. So I love that Pete, the Secretary of Defense, and the president, passed that right away and labeled them as terrorist groups because it was a good whether we go execute any operations in the southern border, it gives them a good they're put on notice that we will reach out and touch them, no matter where they're hiding. So I think that was a great move by this administration right off the bat.
Yeah, I think he's been outstanding. I mean, he comes in and right away declares an emergency. We shut down the border like there's no tomorrow. After all Biden can say was, well, if they don't pass the law, there's nothing I can do. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was just poor lack of leadership, right? You see the night and day comparison between the Biden administration to the Trump administration. I mean, with an executive order, he has just turned the tide. I mean, it's a complete 180 from the last 4 years that we had to just thank God we were able to endure that.
I mean, what it really tells you is Biden really wanted an influx into this country.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what he wanted. So he had no intention to not have anything else done because they could have, and if they wanted to stop it, they could have. They chose not to. So that was all intentional.
Absolutely.
I mean, whew. All right, next question. Standing up for the team. You said that their foundation stands up for combat controllers who can't speak out due to command pressure, especially on issues like training standards and the woke movement in the military. What's one fight you're taking on right now to protect the integrity of your career field, and how can listeners support your effort?
Just recently, in fact, it was last year, or at the beginning of last year, 2024, in our own career field, in combat control career field, they had lowered the standards to allow a woman into those teams, and the standards were lowered, and there was repeated accounts of her not passing those standards, but the general in charge ordered that person would not fail that course. So she eventually made it. And, it's kind of, I feel bad for that person, right? Especially if she truly wanted to get out, but she was ordered to stay in. And luckily, like I said, once Pete took over, that general was fired. So he's no longer in charge of our career field. And I think everything, as you see clear across the armed forces, all standards are being put back to where they're supposed to be. The woke movements and DEI policies are going away. And again, it destroys morale when you have those type of movements and ideologies. And I mean, the other thing you could see is that the recruitment numbers are back up in our armed forces, which is what we need is peace through strength for us to continue to keep America's might across the world. You know, it just the last 4 years, it showed our adversaries that we were weak, and look at what happened to the world. It was on fire. And now everything's starting to stabilize very quickly. Again, it's a great, it's a great feat for this president and what he's doing with the cabinet that he has assembled.
Well, you're 100% right. I could relate because I was a criminal investigator with the IRS. So we would, arrest people, and we had the guns, and we had one woman who didn't know how to handle a gun, and she almost shot off the foot of our range instructor. But rather than get rid of her, okay, they changed the rules at the range, and we just had to put her outside when we did it. We put her out of harm's way because we knew that she could not handle a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the DEI type of agenda, and we saw it all throughout the government there. And it does. I mean, it can get scary because that's how law enforcement officers get killed.
Absolutely. And, I think women play a vital role in our military, and especially in combat operations. I mean, some of the best pilots that I had protecting me and my team were female pilots, Apache pilots. And there's nothing else. Obviously, when you're in a firefight and you hear an American come over the radio, but when you hear a woman come over the radio, it also adds that extra calmness to you because it's like their mother, their motherly, nurturing voice and mama bear, talk on the radio that in your heart that they're going to do everything they can to protect you and that team. And yeah, I think women do have a place in combat, but on those special teams, probably not, because I mean, there's men that can't meet those standards because it's very specialized. So, nothing against them. I'm not saying they don't belong there, but you got to have those standards so that way those teams, when they are out fighting, there's no liability there.
No, you want the best people for the job, no matter what, whether they're man or woman, doesn't matter. They just have to be the best for the position that they're in.
Absolutely. 100%.
I mean, that's really the key. Now, one other question before I start taking questions from the audience. The suicide rate, why do you think it's so high?
This is a question that even when I was in the teams, and I've brought this up to Air Force leadership, saying, it seems like every year they just change the color of the poster, and it's the same thing, right? The 22 veterans a day, and every year it's like, oh my God, we got to do something, we got to do something, and I applaud them. I think it's great that they do that, but what I suggested to them, we need to start treating these individuals while they're in the military, not waiting till they get out of the military. While they're in, there is still a stigma of if you identify as saying, hey, I'm having problems because I'm going through a divorce, or I got in trouble for some reason. You put that target on your back, and commanders, instead of saying, okay, this person, let's just say they're going through a divorce. This person probably does not need to deploy. They need to stay home, get that squared away, get them the help they need, make sure their head's in the game before we send them off or before we bring them back to the line. And what's happening is they're waiting, and they're everybody wants to deploy. Don't get me wrong. That's why we're in the military. Right. But what happens is when you do get out after 15, 20 years, some people even serve 30 years. Now it's just you have suppressed those feelings so much that now that you're getting pills from the VA, depression medicine, sleep medicine, mood medicine, and you become a zombie. And what do these guys are used to do? A lot of them hit the bottle, and they find solace in the bottle. So it's a perfect storm once again, and they find themselves isolated. They can't relate to the civilian world, and they take their own lives. They find themselves in that hole. And I think for us to really make an impact, we need to start really saying to these young men and women while they're in the military that it's okay, and pull them off the line for a while and just make sure they're okay before we send them back out.
Yeah, because it's a tough job. There's no question. You're going to see a lot of blood. You're going to see a lot of, you see combat. I mean, it's life or death all the time. I mean, it's harrowing. It really is. Well, our first question, Teresa, what would you like to
First
ask
of
Eric?
all, thank you, Eric, for your service. My husband was in the Air Force also for 8 years, nuclear weapons maintenance. But with what's going on with Trump saying that, you know, God made men and God made women, and it's not okay for transvestites. You know, talking to my husband, you know, I mean, it's not like we want to, you know, cut on people or judge people, but, you know, it really does make a difference because they seem to have this, you know, mental illness or something, you know, I mean, wanting to dress up like women and women wanting to dress up like men, you know, that a trust feeling, because you, like you said, you have to feel like you're, you know, you're in that hole with somebody that you can trust, that, you know, has their mind all, you know, I mean, nobody's perfect, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, do you agree with that?
Well, I think he's right as far as those people that believe, you know, that they either have a sex identity problem or they're transvestites or they're trans. It affects morale, especially in the military. It affects morale, right? So, I mean, you can't have that in the military. The military is a very special employer because it can discriminate. Because, you know, if you have asthma, you can't join. If you have flat feet, you can't join. If you're overweight, you can't join. There's certain parameters. And like we were talking about earlier, there's certain standards that need to be met for you to become part of the military. And, you know, for us to lean or to bend to a small sliver of the population, it doesn't make any sense. You know, I think some people need to go out, not be in the military because it affects morale. If it affects morale, then there's no team cohesion, and it just trickles down the line. So I do believe that the military, especially in the military, there needs to be clear black and white regulations that say, hey, you know, if you're having um, a sex change, for example, you can't be part of the military because, and the other thing is the taxpayer pays for that. And then that individual, like we have been doing, they can't deploy because now they got to have all the steroids to maintain whatever sex they change to. They can't deploy because they don't have those same type of medical facilities when you're in Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria, wherever we're at. And so again, it just becomes very costly, and it just destroys again the team cohesion and the morale of the team.
Good question. Thank you, Teresa. Ron, you're up next.
Yeah, Eric, I really appreciate your service to our country. I'm a veteran as well. I really don't have any questions for you. I just want to thank you for doing what you're doing for the veterans. And I mean that heartfelt. And I'm glad there are people out there like you that take on this responsibility to help save our veterans from making the worst choice that they could make. And I thank God there's people like you, and just wanted to let you know I appreciate you.
Thank you so
Thank,
much. It was my honor serving this country, and it still is. I would gladly do it again.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ron, for your
Thank
comment.
you.
Magesa, you're up. Disappeared.
Excuse me. Okay. Thank you, Eric, for your service to our country. My question is this. Trump in his first administration did a lot for the veterans. He also, in his campaign speeches, supporting the veterans. Now we're only 50 plus days into the new administration. But are you seeing or hearing of any new changes in Trump's second administration that will benefit the veterans?
You know, it is very early in the game, if you want to call it a game. Doug Collins, I think, was a great pick. You know, Doug was a veteran. You know, and I just saw a recent interview he had. I forgot what platform is with who, but he, you know, he brought out a piece of paper he called out the host and said, "Hey, you guys are putting out misinformation saying that I'm going to go and attack veteran programs and take away veteran disabilities and benefits." And he said, that's not true at all. You know, and he said, instead of you guys are spreading panic, over the VA, and I'm really glad that he was able to stand up to that host and say that and say, hey, you guys could have just easily contacted me prior to that or just double checked, because unfortunately there is people that just look at headlines or short reels or videos on social media, and whatever that person happens to put out there, they take that as fact. So I am glad that Doug is part of the VA, and he's heading that up. And I think him at the helm will be an amazing move for veterans, and it's going to just improve veteran life. Him being one himself. So, once you have someone with that experience and who's walked those miles in those shoes, I think it's going to be great for the veteran community.
Okay, so thank you for your question. Now we go to Rosemary from Florida.
Eric, thank you so much for your service and all of the things you have been doing for the servicemen at this time. I would like to ask you, it is a very difficult, what can I say, transition for military men to adapt when they do leave the Army. Can't a special program of transition for these service people be instituted or developed and instituted that would help them to be able to adapt to the change that will affect them in their lives?
Yes, it was my honor serving in this country, and there is a program. When I left the military in 2013, there was a program called TAPS. I'm not sure if it's still called that, but I have a couple of friends who are about to retire, and they're going through a pretty extensive transition program. So they have improved that, and it is a little bit longer, and it's a program where it teaches guys men and women, how to write resumes, how to dress, how to write, set up your LinkedIn profile, just the little things that you're going to need to give them a better chance at getting hired and adjust. The thing that I don't know, that I wish that there was a program out there, it's truly the adjustment to civilian, not looking for a job, but the adjustment to civilian life. I tell my friends now, it's, when we were in the military, everything was pretty much laid out to us, that there was a roadmap. You knew how to dress, when to get a haircut, where to be, what to wear, what gear to, everything's just laid out, how to promote for the next 20 years of your life. So when you leave the military, it's free fall. It's on you. And for a lot of these people struggle, because I think the civilian life is a lot more difficult than the military life. Yes, there is that part of, like, if we go to war, but other than that, I think people in the civilian world have it pretty tough. And I think they need to have a program to really start talking to these men and women, saying, hey, don't expect to get out of the military and make 200 grand a year, and all of a sudden you're gonna, find the greatest job you've ever had, and people are just gonna know exactly what you did in the military. It's a pipe dream. It doesn't exist. And the people that did serve in combat have that survivor skill, or have, just trouble adjusting, trusting, speaking, to, like, opening up is what I mean by speaking, and it just comes with adjustment. It comes with experience and spending some time out in the civilian life. So that's a tricky program to have, but I think we're understanding PTSD and some of the traumas from combat and in the adjustment period. So I think we're doing a good job. I think we're heading in the right directions, but it's going to take time.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary. And now we got Rob from Ohio.
Hi, Eric. Once again, thank you for all that you've done. Speaking of the southern border security, now that President Trump has declared the cartels a terrorist organizations, there's been rumors that one cartel in particular is being led by ex-special op operators from the United States. Do you see if that would have any effect on our response, given that they know our basic operational pattern and how we can counter that?
That's a great question. I think, the United States special operations, we do train with other countries. So we train all over the world. So some of them do have our tactics and might have some knowledge of or skill sets and what we can do. However, those countries don't have our hardware. So even if it is a Mexican cartel is led by a former operator, they don't have our Apache helicopters or F-16s, F-15s, A-10s, just the capabilities, our drones. I don't care how much money those cartels have, they don't have something like that. So I think even if they do have some, ground advisors, we still control the air and we can decimate those people pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. All right, Shell from Texas, you're up.
Hello, Mr. Eric. I just had two questions, but first I want to thank you for your service, obviously, respect. The first question is, in observing and respecting OPSEC, of course, going into as much detail as you possibly can, what are some general strategies or principles the military uses to maintain security in high-risk environments that civilians might find useful in our lives currently?
Well, in the military, we have a different system. We, what you would call the regular internet, and then we have obviously a circuit system that we operate on that. And obviously the people that are in those specialized teams, they have top secret clearances. They know what they can say and what they can't say. They have different names for different programs, code words for different programs. So it's a lot of again, it's the trust factor, right? And everybody that is on that team has been vetted, and also they're all on the same. They're moving towards the same goal. So in civilian life, it's a little bit different. And even if you have a company that everybody wants to, I don't know, whatever the company's making for a product, for example, not everybody has the same product. There's different alliances. The loyalty is not there as when you're in the military, and your life depends on each other. So that's the difference there, and as far as security and OPSEC.
So what's your second question? You're muted.
Thank you. So it took me a minute to unmute it. My second question is, in your experience, have you seen or heard or dealt with cult practices impacting military personnel or communities you've worked with? And how do you think those situations can best be addressed, if at all?
What was that first part? What kind of packages?
If in your experience, have you seen or heard or dealt with any cult practices impacting military personnel?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Not at all. In fact, I never heard of anything like that as far as my time in the military.
Thank you, Shell. Rosemary, you have another question for Eric.
Yes, I do. Getting back to the transition of these service people, what I had really thought with regard to the program of transition is a weaning program. In order to wean these people out of the military, to give them some kind of service in their own communities so that they can be weaned and live with their families and do like part-time and get into the employment area during, after they are completely weaned. It would be like a year or two of weaning with a transition program. What do you think of that?
I know there is internships. I don't think they're too far. I believe it's they're 6 months when, for example, when a friend of mine drops his retirement paperwork, they have a 6-month window where they can start looking at internships and maybe working for a company. There, it's like you said, it's a little bit more of a part-time. I don't know how soon they can start that. That's something I could find out or I can look into. But I know that the military is getting better at slowly, like you said, getting them adjusted to a different job and to the different speed of life. But it also depends on what their job is, the manning. How if the person's overseas, they got to get them back to the States. There's a lot of different factors there. But I know that there is internships where they slowly start integrating the military members to civilian life.
Thank you, Rosemary. Migeso from Hawaii, one of our pillar leaders on corruption. What's your next question, Migeso?
Yes, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Eric. To kind of piggyback on Rob's question, what are your thoughts or feelings seeing active duty military operations defending our own soil as opposed to a foreign theater?
Well, it's there's the Posse Comitatus Act, and if we got to bring our National Guard to protect our southern border, then I'm all about it. As far as it's sad that it's got to get to that point, but if we need that extra muscle to help law enforcement, for example, the southern border, protect it and secure it, then I'm all about it. I'm all about any resource that we can to protect the United States of America. So, in Texas here, Greg Abbott, the governor, he had those floating buoys to put a barrier, and then we built the wall, and then he had the razor wire, and then he had Texas National Guard put on there. So he had all these layers of defense and to try to secure the border, and he took a lot of flack for it. But I think that he's saving lives by protecting Texans, U.S. citizens from illegals that are dangerous and that are coming over with a bad intent, So I think it's great if we got to use that and use active duty at some point. Hopefully, it doesn't get to that point, but the National Guard is a great option.
Thank you for that question, Migeso. Now we have Susan from Hawaii. Susan, what's your question?
Hello, just wanted to let you know, Eric, thank you for your service. We greatly appreciate you. I just had an offhand question. Do you have any working knowledge of maybe approximately how many branches of the military companies are still really practicing adhering to the woke agenda, to the DEI? Do you kind of have any ballpark idea?
I know it was stopped pretty abruptly. There was messages put out by once the president and the Secretary of Defense put out their new directives, it was put out immediately. In fact, if you follow, for example, I follow a handle on social media. There was Special Tactics, which was is part of combat control. They put out a statement saying, "Hey, according to the new directives by the Secretary of Defense and the Trump administration, we now have to adhere to those directives." So I know that once it got passed down and it got trickled down to the lower units and branches, it was immediate. I can't give you a 100% stat on how many people are still trying to fight those policies, but being in the military, that's the great control of it, right? Once it passes down from the commander-in-chief, it gets executed immediately.
Thank you, Susan, for your question. Now our co-founder of Red America First, Ashley, has a question from Florida. Go ahead, Ashley.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, are you a TAC-P, JTAC?
No, so TAC-Ps are conventional, and JTAC. So a JTAC is a Joint Terminal Attack Controller, and that's just whatchamacallit. I can't think of the name. It's a job.
Air control. It's air control, but what kind of combat controller were you?
I was a combat controller. So combat controller is the name of the job. So I was Special Operation Forces. So I was a SOF operator. TAC-Ps are conventional, and combat controllers are Special Operation Forces SOF. JTAC is just another qualification. So just like Halo, Dive, Demolition, a combat controller is right off the gate in those 2 years of training were airborne, demolition, Halo, combat dive, air traffic control. JTAC is another qualification, which is the CAS or close air support. And then combat controllers only work with Special Operation Forces. TAC-Ps work with big conventional forces. Now there are some.
They work with the ASOC, yeah.
Yeah, depending on during the war, we needed some augmentation, so we brought in some TAC-Ps to augment the combat control teams, and they did roll with Special Operation Forces.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashley. Tell us how people could help your foundation and fund it, and where could they go and what could they do to help you with your cause?
Yeah, thank you for that. They can use any Google or any search engine, type in first there. So the number one, STTHERE.org, and it'll take them right to our homepage. And there's donate buttons. We even have a store where they can, rock some of our gear, and it all goes to us. Obviously, there's some overhead, but for the most part, it just goes to us. They can, yeah, whatever they want, and they can forward it on to their friends and families. I love coming in platforms like this because a lot of people have never heard of combat controllers, and we've been around since 1953. And some of the biggest missions that you've heard of in American history, a combat controller has been there. But since it's one guy with that team, you never hear that the combat controller was the guy dropping bombs and saving that team. So yeah, I would love for your audience to go to our platform, take a look, and if it feels good in their heart to donate, I would appreciate that very much.
You're very welcome. Now tell us a little bit more about our job, because I know this is the first time I'm hearing about a combat controller, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Don't feel bad. I was an Air Force guy. I didn't know about it till I cross trained. So I started off as a cop, which is a security forces, and 9/11 took place, and I was going to get out and join the Army or the Navy because I wanted to go fight. And luckily, I met a combat controller, and he said, "Man, just stay in the Air Force. What are you doing? You're crazy." And he told me about combat controllers. It's a 2-year training program. It's about 85 to 90% washout rate. And, in those 2 years, you learn how to jump out of airplanes, the air traffic control, I said earlier, demolition, radio. And when you get out, or when you pass those 2 years, you graduate, then you go to your first operational team, and then you go to JTAC school or SOTAC, and that's when you learn the close air support. Then when you go to war, then when you're attached to a Green Beret team or a Navy SEAL team or a coalition soft team like the British SAS, for example, you get in a firefight, and my job was to get on the radio and start bringing in close air support. So I controlled bombers, fighter jets, drones, helicopters, and the thing that makes it so special is that you're fighting with alongside your team. So you have a headset, and one ear is for your ground team, so you're hearing everything the ground guys are doing, your team. The other one is reserved for the air. So your brain is now working in 2 different hemispheres. And now the 4th dimension is the air, right? So you're moving and shooting, communicating while keeping track of all the planes that are in your stack. A stack is, the planes come in and you deconflict them by altitude. So for example, on the firefight that I earned my Bronze Star with Valor, I had helicopters, then I had F-16s, I had drones, and I had a B-1 bomber. And I had to control and keep track in my head of where all these guys were stationed, at what altitude, and if I brought them in for a gun runs or to drop bombs or whatever I was doing, I had to make sure that I deconflicted all that so that way none of them crashed into each other while I was still shooting and moving and making sure I didn't get shot. So it's a very skilled job. It's a very hard job, and I think that's why it's so hard to get in. But once you do it and you get the hang of it, it's the most amazing job I've ever done in my life. And I would tell your guests to Google combat control and their capabilities, because there's a ton, and you won't even believe what we can do. It's pretty cool.
Wow. Now, I mean, that would amply qualify you to be an air traffic controller on the civilian side, wouldn't it?
That's right. Yep.
Now, have you thought about that? If that didn't.
Yeah. No, I thought about that when I first got out, but no, I just can't be in the box. I need that action, even though controlling air traffic has action, and God bless those people that do it, keep us safe when we're flying. But for me, I just need to move around. I can't do it in the tower.
Listen, if we put you in Washington, D.C., I think you'll see a lot of action there between the helicopters and the planes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was kind of I don't know, not a conspiracy theories, but it was very strange the way that whole thing happened. It was very fishy to me,
Yeah.
So my opinion.
I heard it was suicide on the part of the helicopter commander, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. But Rob has a question from Ohio. Rob, what's your question?
Well, now that I know exactly what you do, if you had to call in and you had a choice between an A-10 Warthog for cover where I forget the designation, but the C-130s that have all the guns on them that circle around. Which one's better? I think both of them are great, but
yeah, so it kind of depends. So your AC-130 is the one you're talking about that has the 105s and the 40 mic. Their loiter time is good, right? And they're in a constant wheel in a circle, and they're looking down on you, right? So I mean, those guys are great, and they can stay up there for a long time. And I guess you're looking at playtime, or we call it playtime, is the amount of time that that aircraft can stay on station or just watch over you. That A-10 now, again, it's another favorite because of the firepower and obviously it's cannon that it has, right? I mean, the plane was built around the cannon, not the other way around. To be honest with you, I love the AC-130 for sure. And those two platforms that you mentioned was great. I have a heart for the F-15, and that the only reason is because my first firefight, the F-15 was the first one that came, they were flying supersonic to get to me, and I went from switching over to our dispatch center, if you will. And when I clicked over back to my air frequency, that that F-15 pilot was right overhead, and he was like, I'm here. What do you need help with? And it was just music to my ears. So, and the F-15 can carry a lot of weapons, but their playtime is very short because, it's a fighter jet, and for you to keep them longer, you have to keep them really high up in the air. So, but yeah, the helicopter is great. The Apache helicopter was, it's money. I love the Apache too. So
right.
You had a few choices there.
All right, Shel, what is your question? Thank you, Rob. We appreciate the question.
My question is, what's the most unexpected lesson about human nature you've learned through your time in the military?
That's a good one. To be honest with you, I guess too, when I first went to Afghanistan, I couldn't imagine when you look at the way they don't value human life and the violence that they inflict on each other, and that's their way of life is violence. And it's pretty sad to see. To them, I think that's what made them such a tough adversary for us, is because they don't care about who dies over there. And it's hard to believe that they were created by our God, and I think a lot of those far extremist groups are, they don't value human life. The good lesson that I learned is that you have men that go over there that do have compassion, and in the midst of war, they're out there trying to save some of these villagers or their children, and putting themselves in harm's way. So the American spirit is to protect and to fight, and it's a sight to see that American men will sacrifice themselves for a child or a woman or even a man that's out there, caught in the crossfire. So it's pretty amazing to see. And also the love that we have for each other. When we would get in a fight, we would take cover, but then the next thing we would do is rally and start looking for where this fire was coming from, so that way we could attack it. And we did it for the love of each other. And me as a controller, my job was to protect that team. So I didn't want to see any of these guys get hurt, and I would do anything for those guys. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see that the love that we have for each other. It's amazing.
Osama bin Laden said it best: Americans love life, they love death.
Yeah.
Well, we have another question from our co-founder, Ashley from Florida. Go ahead.
Yes, I was curious, what bases were you stationed at, and if you're a Link 16 operator or familiar with it, over.
I started my first operational team was in England, and my career ended at the 23rd, which was Florida. Link 16 was right when I was leaving, and yeah, I am familiar with it. I didn't really play with it much. I was kind of old school as far as that stuff. But in fact, the guy that ripped me out of Wardak, he had that system on his kit. So, he kind of showed me around. But by that time, my team leader, like I said, was killed, and And after that, I just kind of took it out of me and I left. So I didn't get to play with that system too
Well,
much.
10 years before you went into service, I was an expert at it in the Navy, and it's what started my career as a contractor. I yield. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Ashley, for that. Okay, Susan from Hawaii, you have another question. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I had to unmute. I was wondering, because you are doing compassionate work with your foundation, what advice or suggestions, or maybe a chain of command they can follow people who are still currently serving, and some on base and some, out in the field, as far as those suffering from anxiety and depression, who are dealing with commanding officers who are not really wanting to hear about it, wanting to do anything about it. The doctors are going along with the commanding officers, and they're really not getting the emotional support they need. And that can lead to despair. Do you have any advice for people that are currently in service now that can help them, get them some relief, or find another way around? I know you have to go up the chain of command, but when that's not working for them, when the doors are closed, what would be your advice?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it has happened. I would say seek out a chaplain because chaplains do have a little bit of they have their way that they can talk to a commander or maybe go outside. Maybe they in the Air Force we had Area Defense Council, which is kind of a lawyer. Well, it is a lawyer for the airmen, but I think chaplain would probably be the best advice. There is also obviously any service member can go to their clinic or doc and seek mental health help with talking to a professional, but a chaplain's always good. Get your soul right and figure out a best way to attack whatever problem they're having or issue that they're dealing with. So that would be my first choice for sure.
Am I up? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. So two things. First of all, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight, and I want to thank you for your service. I was really clueless about what some of you guys do, and just to hear you talk about that was really something. I mean, you hear about it, but it just is wow. But so my question, you mentioned, the difference between the American soldiers and then of course those over there, Islam, and how they love death. And so you saw it in everything that you saw, and you said you lost a couple of comrades. So my first question is, was that a struggle for you in all of this because you mentioned God, I'm assuming you sound like a man of faith. So I'm wondering how you coped with that. Was that a struggle with your faith in God as you saw all of this taking place? All of the things that you saw?
Yeah, especially when I left the military, Andrew was killed, and it really, that one really hit me pretty hard. And survivor's guilt was a big part of it that I never realized I would experience. I was okay with what I did for the job and the war, but as far as when I lost Andrew, the way he was killed really affected me. And yeah, a lot of prayer, especially when I got out. It just, I tell people I would go to my church and sit in the first pew, which I never used to. I always sit in the back, back then, and I would just look up and just pray to we had a crucifix in my church, a big one, and I would just pray and ask why this happened, and I was, I had a real hard time adjusting in the survivor's guilt, and I would just pray for death. I would ask God why I survived and Andrew died, and it took a long time and a lot of some counseling and tons of prayer and some love from family members and old teammates and I realized, this is why this point right here in my life is because God had a different mission for me after the military. So it's hard, but it's all perspective, right? And you gotta, there's a difference between faith and belief and belief. And I think belief is a little bit passive, and faith is just you have to actively work on that, and yeah, absolutely. My faith in God got me through some pretty tough times after I left the military.
Wow. Thank you, Wendy, for your question. Ashley, I think you have another question for Eric.
Yes, I wanted to ask you if you could help us share your feelings and thoughts on your experience on town hall tonight, and will you come back?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, it's my honor to come out and meet people like you that I normally would never meet, and share a little bit about my organization, and also share about combat control, which is I love that job. And right now that comes to mind, we have the Medal of Honor Museum opening up in Arlington, Texas, in 2 weeks, I believe. And the first Medal of Honor ever recorded in history is John Chapman, who was a Medal of Honor recipient, who was a combat controller assigned to SEAL Team 6. And I hope your viewers you can go to YouTube and YouTube John Chapman Medal of Honor, and it'll come up. And it's a black and white video. I believe it's about 8 minutes long. And you look at the epitome of a combat controller. John saved 23 people that day, and finally, succumbed to his wounds. But it's just amazing what he did. I mean, just it's just pure will that he stayed alive to defend his teammates, and allowed the extraction of the QRF force to come in. So, first Medal of Honor recipient, caught on video. He should have two, but you can only get one Medal of Honor. And yeah, that's the epitome of combat control right there. Is protecting the team no matter what, above all else, and that's exactly what John did that day.
Wow, thank you, Ashley, for that question. Wendy, co-host of Pastor's Point, you're up next.
Yeah, so my second question was the organization and what you're trying to do now with all of the transitioning. Are you receiving help from the faith-based community, and is it helping? If you are, is it helping?
No,
how much?
I'm not receiving any help. We're very young as far as our platform and our organization. This is the start of our 4th year, and we're slowly making our name for ourselves. And me coming on shows like this, that I'm very thankful for, that we can talk about combat control and what we're doing. And we're an unconventional group of people, and to include our families, and we're an unconventional nonprofit. And I want to do anything I can to make sure that they stay on Earth. So if we can save one guy or one wife or one kid, then our mission, to me, that's a win, right? I mean, the difference that a combat controller makes on any battlefield, that one guy can change the outcome of that battle. So I look at it the same way here on the civilian life. If I can save one guy or that wife, then it's great. That child, whatever it is. So it's platforms like this that help me and help me, educate the public. That's one of our pillars of that foundation. One is to take care of my teammates, our families, and then educate the public about who we are and what we did for our country. So, great question, and thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Yeah.
Well, it was our pleasure to have you, and thank you certainly for showing up. You did a great job, and like I said, it was a learning experience for me personally, because I had no idea about your job. I mean, like, absolutely zero.
Don't worry. We're slowly changing that.
So thank you again for being on the show, and we look forward to having you back in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be my pleasure to come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. Now we're going to transition to Intel Round. Mike, what panel members do you want to bring up?
Well, let's start with Magaso, because he always has something interesting to say. And we'll go down the list. Put your hand up and I'll call on you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we're trying to do Intel Round a little bit different tonight, so raise your hands and we'll get you in. And I know we got some Nevada people on and some people on from Hawaii, Texas. Doug, I don't know where you're at. Go ahead, Magaso. There he is.
There we go. Okay, let's talk about Maui. Hawaii's back in the news. Not good news, let's say. Maui Police Chief John Pelletier is
Yes.
being tied to the P. Diddy case. John Pelletier was also a key figure in the Lahaina fires, where he sent people back into the fire as opposed to away from the fire. Well, now fast forward, I guess karma is real. Mayor Richard Bisson has asked the police commission to now place Maui Police Department Chief John Pelletier on leave because he is in a lawsuit on a rape case by Sean Diddy Combs and took two people at gunpoint from Las Vegas to a California home where they witnessed the rape of a woman in 2018. These lawyers for Ashley Parham and two other plaintiffs, right now they're John and Jane Doe, amended their original lawsuit in October. So Pelletier is among several defendants that are on the complaint, along with comedian Drew Drusky Desportes and Miami Dolphins wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. So Bisson, the mayor, is also a longtime judge before he became mayor. So, and like I said, he's tied to the Lahaina fires as well. The other interesting the thing in regards to that, well, Pelletier is claiming he has no connections, obviously, to what took place. But we have an interesting thing in Hawaii in general, because Pelletier became the police chief in Maui in 2021. But here on Kauai, we also had a police chief named Todd Raybach, who was also involved with the Las Vegas shootings and the attempted assassination of the prince there. So, and Pelletier, of course, was in Las Vegas as well at that time.
That all came out of the P. Diddy case, didn't it? They're all tied into P. Diddy somehow, some way?
Well, Todd Raybach isn't tied directly yet to P. Diddy, but Pelletier definitely is. And also, you know, Pelletier has still a lot of questions about missing children from Lahaina or missing families where whole families, quote, were disintegrated. There's still a lot of questions on maybe possible trafficking and taking of families, because that was also a part of a military operation. So that's one of many things in Hawaii. I'd also like to sometime in the future bring on someone on the show to speak of the corruption in the Hawaii Republican Party. We're fairly solid in a lot of places on the mainland, but Hawaii is definitely controlled by rhinos, even Democrat infiltrators into the Hawaii Republican Party with monies disappearing. So we have a lot of corruption here in the Hawaii Republican Party. So I'm going to step forward, at least in the immediate future, to run for Kauai County Chair for Kauai and Ni'ihau, so we can help weed out the people that are actually destroying the name or destroying the reputation of the Republican Party. Because we believe ultimately...
So I'm going to reach out to the Republican Party of Hawaii chair and invite him to the corruption meeting with you, and we'll plan it sometime in April. Over.
Well, what I'd like you to reach out to is Tamara McKay, because if you recall, in the past we had a guest on our show, Kyla Rink, who was bringing forth some falsehoods, let's say, that were taking place, and we had to debunk her on that show. So I'm not sure who you're speaking with or bringing on, but I'd like to talk to you off channel on that one.
That's interesting news. I'm going to just give you a little comment about Florida before we go to Ron. Florida, on April 1st, we're having a special election for the 2 congressional seats. The Democrats are planning to send in volunteers by the busload to walk every Democrat to the polls to get them to vote because they really believe that they could flip the House, which, of course, if they won all three seats, the two in Florida and one in New York, they could. So they have raised millions of dollars to come to Florida to make sure that everybody that's a registered Democrat gets out and votes on April 1st. And hopefully the Republicans don't show up. That's what they're hoping for, so that they could switch those seats. I don't believe it's going to happen, but certainly they are talking about, that they're instilling fear in their constituents and saying stuff like, Trump's going to kill Social Security and the only thing they can do is flip the House. And so they're going to spend millions upon millions of dollars to bring operatives down here in Florida on April 1st to make sure that every Democrat gets to the poll to vote. Now, with those,
Mike,
Yeah, what's interesting with that, Mike, here in Hawaii too, and especially Kauai, is the delegates are the only ones that are allowed to vote for county chair.
Hmm.
And how it works in
Mike,
Florida, but that's how it is here. And
the pro-
the delegates are primarily Rhino, and they have their own force, and they tend to take over meetings from the actual district chairs and delegates that are here. So a lot of people have been setting up roadblocks for me now that they know that I'm interested in moving in. Our election's at the end of the month. So I just found out I have until March 19th to get all my information in. And it's really incredible the roadblocks they put in front of you to prevent or call it, I'll just say, not to, with ego or to toot my own horn, but to keep the right people out.
oh yeah, no question. No question. If we're not careful, we could actually lose the House.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yes,
the
Rose.
only the problem with the special election, April 1st,
Mm.
we don't know too much about it. No, here I am involved with the Republican Party, and I don't know too much about it. Imagine the other Republicans. How do we get the word out? Who is and what is going to take place in order to publicize this election?
I think the biggest issue is the Republicans, because they have a large, it's mostly a 67-33, 2-1 Republican registrations. They're not counting on every Democrat coming to the polls and voting. And that's what the Democrats want to do. They're bringing in operatives to knock on every Democrat door, say, listen, did you vote in the special election? They have the addresses. And by bringing every Democrat out, if the Republicans stay home, we could lose by default. And that's the issue. They don't see it coming. They won't see it coming until the buses cross into Florida early morning, April 1st, and they start unloading about 6 a.m. in the morning and start knocking on doors and making sure they're bringing out every Democrat that they can.
Well, the problem is the Republicans aren't going to go out because they don't even know about the election.
And that's what they're counting on. Exactly what they're counting on. And they could actually flip the seat.
Yeah, and so what is the Republican Party doing about this? What are the candidates doing about this? There is absolutely no information. We don't even know who the candidates are.
Well, there was Fine is one of them in Walsh's district. I don't know who is in Matt's Gates district. I haven't heard a lot of
Okay, so
good things
so
about
it's
the
only
guy.
limited to those districts then, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's it. Those districts, right?
Okay, all right. That's why we don't know about it here.
Right, because it's your congressional district. Now, Walsh's district is the one next to mine, but I think, like I said, if Republicans don't get out and vote, if we don't get the vote out, we're going to be sitting on our hindquarters going, what just happened here? How do we lose these seats? And they have to win all three to flip the House. But if they could flip the two in Florida, we're in trouble. God willing, they won't take any of the ones in Florida. And That'll give us a little more breathing room. But their plan is to come in. They've raised millions of dollars to do this with a whole bunch of volunteers and drag every registered Democrat to the polls to make sure they vote. Okay, Ron, what's your question?
I don't have a question. I thought maybe you wanted to know about what's going on in Nevada.
Absolutely. What's going on in Nevada? Tell us.
Well, let me get to it because I have to go to my pictures and I can't be. Okay, so Nevada Attorney General joins the effort to stop federal firings. Okay, yeah, Attorney General is Ford, and he's a woke guy. Anyhow, a bipartisan mail ballot bill in Nevada. It's not as crazy as it sounds. So it seems like a bipartisan. They're going with mail-in ballots instead of what Trump suggested as far as paper ballots. And we're still fighting here in our area in trying to get the paper ballots instead of mail-in ballots. But it looks like Nevada's going to hang on and try to go for mail-in ballots. Okay, the most dangerous national parks to visit: Lake Mead and Death Valley here in Nevada, just so you know. Attorney General, Nevada Attorney General joins amicus brief supporting law firm targeted by President Trump. This Nevada Attorney General is bad news for us, but that's what's going on there. And Nevada is the closest it's ever been to legalizing a state lottery. Just for grins, thought I'd throw that in. And the public lands bill would open up 25,000 acres of development in Las Vegas area because they need it for housing. I think it's a terrible thing. Las Vegas is a desert. There's already too many people down there. They're going to run out of water, and they're going to come after the northern Nevada for the water. You watch, mark my words. But this is terrible that they're actually going to take over public lands. And this is going to set a precedent, and that's what makes Nevada unique. Is 87% or more is public lands, which means there is no trespassing signs, so we can go all over. I just terrible to see this happening. Okay, Trump expected to invoke wartime authority to speed up mass deportations effort in coming days. Nevada considers strengthening protection against paramilitary groups. Now, I read this letter, and what they're saying is they're going to go after people that they suspect are paramilitary, but some of the parts of the law are that it'll be against the law to patrol a certain area with a weapon. Well, that's against the Constitution. You can't stop people from, carrying a weapon. It's the Second Amendment, but that's a scary one right there. Rosen, the Senator Rosen that defeated Brown, I think illegally. Anyhow, she calls on Trump to rehire Nevada VA employees. Okay, don't fall victim. Be careful of scammers posing as Nevada State Police. And gun confiscation under Nevada's red flag law picking up after slow start. That's another dangerous one. Those red flag laws are illegal. No one should ever lose their gun rights unless it's by a jury of 12, and they're circumventing our Second Amendment with red flag laws. But anyhow, that's all I have as far as news in Nevada.
Well, Ron, that's why they want mail-in ballots, because they can keep the Democrats in control.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what that's all about. And Nevada's kind of like a swing state, but unless they get rid of the woke AGs and vote those people out, which is tough to do because all the dead people from Dead Valley vote in Nevada by mailing in their ballots, and that gives them a big advantage.
Yes, and we have a rabid woke legislature. The Democratic legislature controls Nevada. We have a Republican governor Lombardo, who was the sheriff during the massacre in Vegas, and he has lied his butt off about what went down in Vegas. But anyhow, he's the governor. He was the best choice we had. We didn't have any other choice for Republican to go for governor. So at least we didn't get a Democrat, but it is what it is.
I have a question for Ron, if I can.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. How long have you been in Nevada, Ron?
about 30 years.
Okay. This Maui police chief, John Pelletier, he was on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for 22 years. He was the commander of the Convention Center Area Command, responsible for the Las Vegas Strip. And he was the incident commander for the 1 October mass shooting in Las Vegas that killed 60 people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, can you tell me anything more, your experience or anything over the years that you heard about Mr. Pelletier?
Well, what I will tell you is Mindy Robinson, YouTube, she goes into depth about the Las Vegas shooting. And educate yourself by watching some of those YouTubes from Mindy Robinson. There's a lot that we were lied about as far as what went down in Vegas on that shooting. It's not at all. It is nothing like what they fed the public, and it dropped out of sight rather quickly. All the information and everything concerning what went down there.
Well, that's why we think Pelletier and Todd Raybach were both involved in that, became police chiefs in Maui and one in Kauai. That it was like a promotion for them to get them out. And of course, I mentioned about Pelletier, but Raybach on Kauai, he got suspended recently here because he forgot his gun, loaded gun, twice at a Starbucks in the men's bathroom.
Oh my goodness.
He was also responsible for, or probably gave the order when I get arrested during COVID for no mask, while he was entertaining Black Lives Matter up in Hanalei, where he met with the Black Lives Matter people, which half the group there were not wearing masks next to him. So
yeah, it sounds like a snake.
Yeah,
connect the dots. But if you get a chance, anybody gets a chance, look up Mindy Robinson YouTube on the Las Vegas shooting.
Okay. Ron, thank you for that. Let's go to Shell in Texas.
Well, I have some intel on the massive brush fire in Long Island 4 days ago. So supposedly on March 7th, 2025, a covert DARPA-funded operation codenamed Project Helios conducted an unsanctioned test of a scalar wave emitter stationed at Camp Hero, Montauk, Long Island. They told me the device, disguised as a meteorologist radar, was designed to manipulate atmospheric conditions for weather control and magnetic warfare, and more than likely something went wrong.
What you're saying, this happened on Long Island 4 days ago?
Yes.
I didn't hear anything about it. Can you expand upon what you know about it? How big was the fire? How long did it take them to get it out?
Pine Barrens. So yes, Pine Barren, exactly. So basically more intel that I got was, I was also told that at 1:22 on March 8th, the experiment misfired. The scalar wave destabilized a pocket of dry, low humidity air, superheating it to like 1,200 degrees Celsius within seconds. And it was said that it triggered spontaneous combustion across multiple points in the Pine Barren area. The fires erupted simultaneously at 13:05 Eastern Standard, fueled by high winds, gusts up to 50 miles per hour, with bone-dry vegetation spreading rapidly across the Hamptons and forcing road closures like Sunrise Highway. This is coming from one person who was plugged into the intel that I know.
Sunrise Highway. I used to travel on Sunrise Highway all the time. Wow.
So apparently, Project Helios was supposed to be a response to an intercepted chatter for a Chinese intelligence network operating out of New York City, planning to disrupt U.S. financial markets via satellite interference on March 10th of 2025. The deep state greenlit the test to preempt this, prioritizing national security over transparency. The fires were unintended consequence, and the Hamptons' proximity homes to elite financial and political figures amplified the urgency to suppress the truth, avoiding panic and exposure of classified tech.
Well, that's really interesting. And 175 fires in was it South Carolina? I thought
Yeah.
found that was pretty interesting too. 175 fires.
But according to my intel, there's, I mean, like ground pattern, EM spikes, I'm sorry, and then witnesses accounts that don't add up.
Right. I think that's really believable because I saw somebody else on the internet talking about differences in the atmosphere in that area during that time. So that kind of jives with what you're saying.
And DARPA was busy. I'm just going to say it. DARPA and the military and, secret government programs, they were busy this week.
Yeah.
Now that Trump's in, shouldn't that stuff be leveled down?
I don't think so. I'm not seeing that yet. I don't know. I don't know when that scale tips more on our favor, but I mean, like the first thing that I wanted to say was I got intel. Oh, where is it? On my page about swatting. So I have intel on people from different social media sites that have actually been swatted. Sean Faris, Ariel Prolatolo, Gunther Eagleman, Nick Sorotor, Alex Jones host that he had a couple days ago.
Joe Pags too. I think it was.
Oh.
He got swatted. He was talking about it on the radio today.
Yeah.
He got swatted.
Yeah, that's not an inclusive list at all. I didn't name even half the people. I just scaled people's profiles that I know, people that I'm in their circle. They told me. That's all I know for now. But
I know last week you spoke about Gene Hackman's death being a murder. That came out that the guy who came to the house was some sort of quack doctor that worked with him on a movie but had an obsession with him. Gave him some stuff, and Hackman had a recording before he died saying how him and his wife were going in and out of consciousness, and it was this black tea that they found at the house that was somehow poisoned, and that caused their deaths. So it'll be a homicide investigation.
I heard it was hantavirus that killed his wife. And
I heard he had some information on the Epstein case that he was going to bring forward.
And that he had Alzheimer's really bad, and that he had Alzheimer's so bad that he didn't feed the dog in the cage and the dog died. That's the story I heard on news.
I heard she died before him with the hantavirus about 7-8 days before, and he didn't know she was dead. There are different stories. It's really strange to hear all these stories, and that his heart gave out. I mean, who really knows what happened? This is a mystery.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah, but they found the tape, the audio tape, and they did find the guy. They know who he is, and he went missing because he took off. And I mean, those tunnels beneath the house make it very interesting too. The whole way he died. I mean, he, with the Alzheimer's, and his last recording was how he was going in and out of consciousness after taking this tea that this guy brought. I don't think they wanted to take it. I think they kind of were forced, and I think that contributed to their death. But we'll certainly find out more in the next coming months.
If they're willing to give us that information.
Kind of sounds like the French Connection.
Right.
Different twists.
Well, Rob, what do you have for us in Ohio?
Well, nothing from Ohio really, but I just wanted to follow up on what Shell was talking about, the doxing. And wasn't there a judge just recently that requested that some of the members of the Doge have their intel, their identities revealed to the public? So
yes,
and there was also a Alex Jones reporter that was shot in front of his own home.
They think that's connected to Ukraine. I heard that story.
Now they're going to blame a lot of things on Ukraine right now, but yeah, I mean, it's like they definitely want that whole group out of the way because his other reporters, they've been getting doxxed for quite a while, where they would report that there was a violent act going on at the home. One guy, he said police showed up at his house at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, a whole squad of them, and he had to go outside. And I've heard of it being done to other ones, but it's always the conservatives, never the liberals, that get treated like that.
That was Joe Pags. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's definitely been an uptick in violence against conservative people or anybody associated with Trump or Doge.
Yeah.
Well,
By the way,
you got to remember something. Doge is exposing the Democratic Party. It's defunding the Democrats. That's what they're really doing.
Right.
So
the last bit of money they're spending is trying to shut these people up.
That's why I think that if Chuck Schumer shuts down the government, the first thing Trump needs to do is get rid of the whole Ninth Circuit and every judge who has been reversed by the Supreme Court, in order of 10 times, 9 times. Those judges, you could make the case they're wasting taxpayer dollars because they're always getting reversed. Fire them. So we don't have the money due to we don't have continuing resolution. I have to fire you. You want your job back, you have to reapply.
Well, Schumer has changed his mind from what I read. He is going to go along with this CR. I read it on X, on different posts. He's changed his mind because he came to realize that if it went through and they didn't fund the government, that would give Trump a full hand to do a lot of things. And once they realized that, Schumer's changed his tune.
Yeah.
By the way, what did you think of the withdrawal of Dave Weldon's name from the CDC? Because Dave Weldon, his ideology was right in line with Robert Kennedy with regard to Big Pharma and so forth. And that seemed a little weird that they pulled his name.
Yeah. Who knows, the pressure that could have came down on him from Big Pharma.
Yeah.
He was told an hour before he was going to the hearings.
Yeah, that is a lot of questions there.
Well, maybe he should have spoke up years ago.
He did, and that was something he had been speaking up, about quite a bit. He was against some of these vaccines and doing some investigations with regard to, the side effects and all of these kids that were,
right. But he wasn't he wasn't getting in front of the cameras to let the people really know.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's interesting on a sidelight was Joe Biden's pardons, because it's coming to light now that those pardons were electronically signed, that all the signatures matched on every one of the pardons. And according to law, the president has to be present and sign those documents with their own pen. So it's another possibility that all those pardons are null and void.
Yes. In fact, they found on one of them, or a few of them, he was on the beach when they were supposedly signed, and that would be illegal because he would have to be in the White House. And I think that's done because of security purposes.
Correct.
That has to be done in the White House. So those
Yes.
signatures that were, signed, electronically are probably not going to hold up.
Well, they can't. It's unlawful.
Mm-hmm.
And
So,
let's not forget his first resignation when he decided to drop out of the race. His signature didn't match there at all.
That's right.
mhm.
So,
And
somebody's been playing us.
and all these pardons will will be illegal also.
But what court is going to determine that?
Well, I guess the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It'll go to the Supreme Court. It'll go to the.
That's apparently what Bear and Trump whispered to Joe Biden during the inauguration when Biden's face went dropped.
I didn't know that
So
Bear and
fun.
Trump whispered to him.
Enjoy the show. Enjoy the show.
I want to see if they find the money, the kickback money he's getting from Ukraine.
Well, there's also kickback money they're now pointing out to Michelle Obama because now she's started her own podcast. And so she was being interviewed by someone the other day. And then something came down. I don't know if it's from Doge or whatever, that she was receiving kickbacks. So when you look at the comments during the podcast, I say it's good to see two men talking about things.
I apologize. I was thrown off my phone, and who was getting kickbacks? I just got back on.
Michelle Obama.
Oh, well, that doesn't surprise me.
And Michael too.
Oh, yes, Michael. Yes, Michael and Michelle together. M&M's.
It was called double dipping.
Yes, M&M's. It melts in your mouth, not on your hands.
Well, she's rumored to be in Ocala.
Is he coming to visit you, Michael?
We're gonna have lunch on next Tuesday. But I said she has to buy, because I'm not.
Oh, she is.
What?
It, you mean it? Don't you mean it has to buy?
Or it is by?
Apparently, she's good friends with John Travolta.
Okay.
And is close with somebody that's here, so she's been spending time in Ocala. So
I can see the connection to John Travolta to staying alive.
yes, yeah. So
when's the last time you had a full physical, Michael? Do we need to know something?
You're just jealous because Michelle wants to take me to lunch.
And by the way, talking about Hunter Biden is in trouble too. he's pleading poverty.
Yes.
Yeah, he's pleading poverty, but he's living the life in a $500 a day villa outside the country.
But he's trying to get on food stamps so he can pay for his habit.
Right. He's going to have GoFundMe for his artwork. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. The value of his artwork sank as soon as he left the father left the White House.
That's right. It certainly did. Yeah, it's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, I wonder how those people that paid him that big bucks, I wonder if they got any benefits down the road from that. That should be looked at.
Well, they certainly did when Joe was in office, but now that Joe's out of power, his
Well,
his stock has sunk greatly.
yeah. And plus the fact that Hunter said, well, his artwork burned in the fires in California. So one minute you get one story, another minute you get another. I wonder what really happened. Please, his artwork was like a first grade child. Oh,
Yeah,
But
hopefully
he
insurance
filed
didn't
it.
pay for it.
No, he filed an insurance claim. They only offered
Exactly.
$5 a painting.
Right.
That's great.
That's
I
about
love
right.
it.
Yeah, that's about right.
Ask Rob. He bought two.
Rob.
Yeah, but I sold them for $1 a piece.
And where are they hanging? Which museum?
The Epstein Museum, maybe?
Right, right. Oh,
Any
okay.
thoughts on Pam Bondi taking so long to bring anything forward?
I'd rather take her time and be right than to rush and have it all thrown out.
Amen. Yep. Yeah. A lot of people are raising Cain on X and stuff and saying, you promised. And I'm like, wow, lighten up. She's got a big job, let it be right.
I'm
I
just
just seen.
wondering.
Go ahead,
I'm
Rose.
thank you. I'm just wondering if she's screening through all of these, and maybe there are some Republicans that she wants to eliminate from the list. I don't know. Do you think she could be screening that list?
Oh, I'm sure she's screening the list. Yeah, she has to go through the list word for word. Yeah. I don't know whether or not she's withholding anything, but we'll see. I mean, hopefully it comes out and it's not redacted.
Well, if
Well,
she withholds anything, that ruins her credibility.
Right.
Everything has to be full transparency,
Right.
regardless of political party.
But how do
I have
we
some intel
know?
on that.
How do we know what she's withholding
We're
if we
going to
can't
ask
see it?
Shell.
The truth always comes out.
Yeah, so
Well,
I have some intel on that through someone deep in it. The real Epstein files, over 12,000 pages, plus audio, plus video, plus forensic data, aren't lost. They're locked in a secure vault beneath the Jacob K. Javits Federal Building in Manhattan, controlled by a black hat's hacking faction within the FBI's New York field office. The unedited surveillance from Epstein's Palm Beach mansion, Little St. James, and Zara Ranch, capturing 47 high-profile figures in compromising acts with minors between 1998 and 2019, wiretapped calls from 2004 through 2017, linking Epstein to Rothschild-funded trafficking hub in Zurich, a ledger detailing $83 million in payments to silenced victims, signed off by a sitting U.S. senator in 2016. So my side note on that, after digging further, was Senator Durbin. So in 23, Judiciary Chair blocked Senator Marsha Blackburn's subpoena for Epstein's info. Durbin was sitting senator in 2016 in Illinois since '97. In the 114th Congress in 15 and 17, he was a senior figure Senate Majority Whip and longtime Judiciary Committee member, becoming its chair later.
Durbin's as dirty as the day is long.
Right.
My deeper question is, wasn't Pam Bondi, wasn't she the FBI director when all that thing came out with
No.
Okay.
She never worked for the FBI. She worked for the state of Florida.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like
She was the
wasn't she
AG.
yeah, that's what I mean. Why didn't she, that was all during the Epstein, when the FBI came into, wasn't it?
One has nothing to do with the other.
But Pam, what I'm trying to say, maybe I'm saying it wrong. I'm sorry. I'm really tired. Pam Bondi, wasn't she the, not the FBI, but she was the, gosh darn it, Pam Bondi.
Attorney General.
Yes.
Attorney General of the state of Florida.
Yes, she was. And during the Epstein, if you look it up, you're going to see that her you know, her position and power at that particular time as Attorney General coincided with the Epstein files when it erupted, and and FBI came into his place and started going around. I did catch that in my research.
So let me tell you, from having worked with the FBI when I was a special agent, they won't release information. So anything that they had in the New York field office is going to stay in the New York field office. They would never give it to an attorney general in Florida. Ever.
Okay.
The federal government took over that investigation.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So in the New York field office in particular, I mean, when I was working with I couldn't, except for one or two agents that I became friends with, you couldn't get anything out of them. The FBI is like, you ever see the movie Stakeout?
Yes.
Where the FBI guys with talking to cops, and he goes, "This is an FBI operation. We'll do the important ones. You guys do the other thing." That's the FBI. I mean, they're famous but incompetent, and you think who they are. They won't release information. And New York in particular was like that because they did the organized crime cases, and a lot of those agents there thought this shit didn't stink at all because they were the FBI, and they wouldn't work with anybody else. They're just not good that way.
Okay, but what about Kash Patel?
Well,
he's here now.
Okay,
he's now in the picture.
Okay, so you got to remember something. The head of the New York field office just resigned. Okay, so that person has to be replaced. And when they replace the guy from the New York field office, it's going to take him time to figure out who's who and what's going on.
But isn't Kash Patel director?
Yeah, he's director, but he's not hands-on. He's not there. So he doesn't know what's going on in the field offices.
But doesn't he sign? I thought he would have something to do with all of them. I thought he was over all of them.
Yeah, he has to put somebody in charge in New York. The New York guy would not cooperate, and he resigned. He decided to retire. Okay, so now Kash Patel, what he needs to do is bring in somebody that wants to go to New York and figure out what's going on, and then feed back the information to him. And that's going to take a little time.
Yeah, I assume that he probably has some people in his, in his visions, for that.
Dan Bongino.
No, he's an assistant director.
Yeah.
Which is great too, actually.
Well, Bongino might know some people because he came out of NYPD in New York, but the FBI is very segmented. They don't share well with other agencies. They don't play well on the playground. They feel like they're the FBI. They can take over. That's why we used to call them famous but incompetent, because we always felt we were better investigators than they were.
But I was thinking that's why we put Kash Patel in that position.
Yeah, but Kash Patel is only one person. The New York field office might have, I don't know, 1,500 agents.
So yeah, but isn't it his duty to get rid of the disruptive part? Because he actually is the one that stood up and said there's a lot of corruption in here, and we got to get rid of some of these people because they're bad.
Yes, but he has to figure it out. And that's what, look, the guy that was in the New York field office was definitely on the side of the left. So he was forced out of his position. He retired. Who Kash Patel brings in, it's going to take that person time to figure out who's who in that field office.
Can I offer some fresh perspective on that?
Okay.
Yes.
So my fresh perspective on this, and I know some of you aren't going to like this at all, but the only reason that that Trump could put those two the reason he would put those two in those two particular situation or positions is because they also are dirty. there's absolutely no way you could put fresh meat in there that would do their job and do it well. Is if he puts fresh people in there, there's nothing going to be. They're going to be mulled over. But if he puts people that are corrupt, it forces them and it forces their hand. It shows their cards right off the table. They basically take themselves out like a chess piece.
Well,
That's my take.
That's what happened with the head of the New York field office. He didn't want to release everything, so they gave him an option and he resigned. But now they got to bring in somebody that can figure out what's really going on in that field office.
Yeah, and you got a lot of double agents involved, as well as, he's going to be talking to whistleblowers and things like that. So there's going to be infiltrators into that investigation and the follow-up as well. So it's not something that can happen overnight. There's a lot that has to be looked at. It won't. Right. I don't think it'll carry on for an extensive period of time, let's say, without giving a time limit. But you can't expect them to go right in there in 2 weeks to start weaning everybody out.
Right.
Hey, how about we switch it over to Zelensky and Putin saying that he's going to he wants to talk to Washington directly before he makes any commitments for a ceasefire. Did you guys catch that?
Which one, Putin or Zelensky?
Putin said that he wants to talk directly to Washington before he makes any commitment with this ceasefire.
Mm-hmm.
And
makes sense. Only makes sense.
It does.
Putin came forward with 2 regions that he wants in Ukraine, as well as Ukraine not going into NATO. That was his comeback.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want any foreign troops on the ground. That was another stipulated point, which is understandable. So I think he wants to have a one-on-one with Trump and say, look, this is what I'm after, and this is what I need. And I think that's great that he's going to talk right directly to the man. And I still don't trust Zelensky as far as I can throw him. I think he's wishy-washy. He'll go back on his word, but we'll see what's happening. And did you hear that the United States was not invited to the NATO war summit over there in Europe? Yeah, that was interesting in a big way, wasn't it?
Well, I guess it's time to get out of NATO.
Yeah, but from what I understand is Trump is going to restart munitions to Ukraine, which is kind of disappointing, but hopefully, yeah, okay, I yield.
You got to keep the pressure up on Putin, too. Right now, Putin's grabbing as much land as he can so he can say he's given up some.
Yeah, he wants that Kursk region as well.
I personally think we've given Zelensky in Ukraine more than enough money and help, and we need to cut them off. That's what I think.
Well, I think that Trump wants to make this peace deal, and he's going to do what he can to make it happen.
The only way that we should be contributing is if we are able to attain some of those minerals from the Ukraine.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's time for us to get something for our money that we put into it. Because they say the people in Ukraine aren't even getting the funds. So where the heck are they going?
To the oligarchs.
Pocket?
Well,
they don't have.
We turned the Ukraine money back on yesterday.
Yeah.
They don't have the resources to develop their mineral, to extract the minerals and to develop them. So that's the problem. They don't have the money or the resources, or and they really need us to do that. And I think the European countries now are getting into the act, and I think they want to go in and get those minerals because they left us out of that meeting, and they seem to be gathering around Zelensky now and talking to him without us.
Yes.
I don't feel comfortable dealing with Zelensky anyways. I think he's, he's just playing games.
We
I
could
think the
always, we could
Europeans
always, we could always sanction the oligarchs.
I think the Europeans are conspiring with Zelensky.
And the Democrats.
Yeah, well, I mean, they left us out of that meeting, and that's the only thing I can think of. They're conspiring in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Not just that, but also UK made a deal with Ukraine right before Trump became president about the minerals. So they're hoping to cut us out of it completely. They used us. Now they're going to cut us out. But also Russia has offered, they have huge resources and they have minerals and all sorts of good stuff that they don't know how, they don't have the money to develop, but we do. And I know Putin's offered Trump that,
wouldn't that be something?
That would be ideal because that would be worth about $75 trillion.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go, guys, but you all have a blessed weekend, okay?
All right. Good night.
I love you guys. Bye.
I'm just thinking about, a deal between the U.S. and Russia. That alliance in itself would be monumental.
Yeah.
It really would. If the UK and those guys, your NATO people are going to try and screw us out of Ukraine's minerals. I just hope Trump has some pretty intuitive people working for him because, a lot of people play dirty.
Yeah, and the problem too is that Putin is not reliable either. He's a little nutso, and we don't know what he's going to do. So he might say yes one day and then no the next day. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, Russia has always been an ally of the United States in war. And part of this money being activated for Ukraine is now because they've been cut off for a while, is to easily see what.
So we can now go after the people that are getting the kickbacks.
Well, I hope so.
Look, this is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy, 2 Thessalonians 5. And that's why Trump was put in office. He's going to make peace with Russia and Ukraine. He's going to make peace with Israel and Hamas.
So I got to tell you guys a couple random updates. Okay. 1, Tiger Woods is secretly dating Vanessa Trump. 2, Democrat congressman from Arizona just died. And his name was Raul Grijalva. Well, he was 77, but I yield.
Wait a minute. What state and who was that? And he was a congressman?
Yes, Democrat congressman from Arizona passed away, and so that's going to cause a special election, and his name was Raul Grijalva.
Right. That's right. So now Democrats, well, they'd have to win that special election too, but that's a chance for the Republicans to come in and gain a seat.
Yes.
And
another random update. Those of you that have T-Mobile, you might be eligible for a $25,000 payout because they had a data breach. So a bunch of people's information was stolen. And then Schumer seems like he caved on the government shutdown. So we'll see.
Well, there have been data breaches with many companies. We had data breaches with Chase, with Verizon, with so forth. There were data breaches last year too.
I never got any money.
I never got anything either.
And Trump announced the Greenland annexation will happen.
Won't happen?
Will. WILL.
Oh, well, that's contrary to their recent elections.
Yeah, how is that going to happen? Are we going to war?
I don't know yet, but we're gonna have annexation with that, and then the San Francisco judge ordered Trump to reinstate tens of thousands of federal employees. We really need the Supreme Court to stop this garbage pronto.
Yeah.
Right. That's happening too much. Every time you turn around, these district judges or these judges they're defying the president.
And this is exactly what I would go ahead.
They don't have constitutional authority to do that.
Exactly. And this is what I was telling my wife and everyone watching the live stream. Listen, just because Trump, signs an executive order doesn't mean that the liberals or the deep state or the globalists will try to block it, right? So there's a lot of his executive orders that they've blocked, and we just gotta let it take its course to the Supreme Court.
Well, there are 94 judges against Trump right now in trying to block all of these things, and especially the U.S. aid and so forth. There's so much waste there. It's unbelievable. And they are trying to block Trump from, blocking the monies to these fraudulent organizations.
So, Migueso, if you're still there, Michael, the three of us need to have a sidebar, and we probably need to write something up to try to push a bill to get rid of some of these judges. Mike had an idea of doing a riff or like a budget kind of situation where, hey, we just can't pay you anymore.
If they don't pass a continuing resolution, Trump's first action should be to fire all 94 of those judges, and he could do it, and it'll be totally legal. And once they're fired, they don't have standing; they can't do anything.
Not going to happen. Schumer caved.
That's why he caved. He had to get a clue that was going to happen.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
We really watch political theater every day. The uniparty works together in union, and we just got to be awake to it.
Anyway, I am going to call it a night.
Before you go to bed, Rosemary, Valerie's got an announcement.
No, there's a blood moon and a lunar eclipse tonight.
At 2:24 a.m.
Eastern.
I think I'm going to be sleeping during the lunar eclipse.
I know. I probably will be too, but I want to try to sleep.
The moon is gorgeous tonight. I don't know.
Yes, we walked the dogs down. It looks great. And Michael, thank you so much for hosting tonight. I was sick in the tub, hot water, and I was still, helping you out with unmuting everybody and everything like that. I just 4 days and I lost 15 pounds or more.
Wow.
I have not been feeling good. Some know that personally. So
I went to the doctor actually.
I did today. I got medicine. Good. So.
And is it the neurovirus or what?
I'm not sure, but when I was posting, it's interesting. When I was posting on Facebook about this, there was probably 70 other people that either have similar symptoms or know someone that has similar symptoms, and they're like, some said that it's going on for 2.5 weeks. I told the doctor today, I came in here today because I'm not going to let this go 2.5 weeks. I can't even let it go 5 more days.
Right.
No, you know what? If it is, you have to, take some. You dare see it all?
Wait, hang on, Rosemary. Teresa, Washington, I want you to chime in. Tell us your husband's experience. What's he dealing with?
Hey there. Sorry, I'm just on the way home from the airport. Got my headphones in. It took him 2 weeks plus, and he's still not better. But one thing we've really focused on beyond the regular cadre of supplements is that oil of oregano. Have those capsules, and don't have it on empty stomach. You got to eat before and after it, or else you'll have burps all day. But definitely take the oil of oregano.
What kind of symptoms is he having, Teresa?
Just like really crazy respiratory and just weak, like he just got run over by a Mack truck. And just, I don't know that he got the stomach issues as badly, but definitely respiratory.
Wow. You got to wonder if they're attacking us with
Yeah,
stuff.
this time last year we went to Puerto Rico and I came home and I had the respiratory and the stomach stuff and it was awful. But this time I had it just the stomach stuff. So
For 1 day.
And mine only lasted like 1.5 days.
She had it 1.5 days. I had it for 1 day. Felt good for about 12 hours on Monday, and then 5 o'clock on Monday it came back. And then and Tuesday at 3 a.m. my son started hurling, and him and I are both kind of stuck in this situation. And we both went to the doctor. He went first, and I told my wife, I said, if I'm kind of feeling a little bit better, so we went to take him. And when we came home, on the way home, we picked up some food. It just came right back, and then I had some meetings with work. And I went back to the doctor right after that. So hopefully tomorrow I'll feel better. But I was in the tub in hot water the whole time managing the show while Mike was hosting. Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it. It worked out well.
Well, try me. You know what? If you're throwing up to or have diarrhea, try a boreal rice.
Okay. I am supposed to eat banana, rice, and all this stuff, but here's the problem. I haven't had an appetite, and then when I take a bite, just one bite, everything comes back. It's the craziest stuff I've ever dealt with in my life.
A boreal rice is a very pasty rice, and it will absorb the impurities in your system. Try a boreal rice.
I will listen to Rosemary because that lady's still running around like a spring chicken.
In fact, I gave it. I had some here, and I gave it to Karen when she had a bad stomach, and she's a doctor down the street. I gave it to her, and sure enough, it helped her. So try that. It will help to absorb it. Well, my father was a doctor. It comes from him too, So many years ago. But the boreal rice will help, and try to overcook it. Don't take a lot of stuff with it. Maybe a little butter and a little salt, and that's it. And eat it.
I'll give you the recipe to getting well. Find a apothecary or that you can go to and buy sweetened charcoal. Okay. When I got sick in the deserts of Morocco, I went to these apothecary, and that's what he gave me, and it was sweetened charcoal, and I took that and I healed up. It heals your inside. Charcoal will heal your insides. That's the secret I got for you, Ashley.
Well,
thank you. I appreciate everyone's feedback. Thank you.
And another one is Coke syrup. Coke syrup.
Coke?
Coke. Like Coca-Cola Coke syrup.
Oh, syrup. I thought you said Coke Zero. It's like, wow.
I remember that from when I was a kid, Rosemary. But activated charcoal, you can get it in pill form, capsules.
It's like after 8 now.
Yeah.
And that absorbs the poisons from going.
You seem kind of.
Hey, you know what's interesting? Let's talk about the global people that are getting caught up.
There's people talking over.
You know me.
That's cool.
Let's talk about the global people that are getting in trouble with this human trafficking, like Uganda's UN judge, Lydia Mugambe, 49, convicted in the UK of enslaving a woman, forcing her into unpaid labor and childcare, guilty of trafficking and intimidation. And then also 3 days ago, the Philippines president was arrested in another country. Rob, can you give us some feedback on the Philippines president?
I have no information on that.
Well, I am going to traffic off, so have a great night, everybody.
Good night,
Okay?
Rosemary.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
The Philippines. Yeah, that's an interesting one. He went to a different country and then got arrested, right?
Yes, that's right. Let me pull it up, actually. Hang on.
That's real interesting.
I'll get the details. Hang on a second.
I think they have something on him. Otherwise, they would not have arrested him.
Or else he's fighting against it and they're covering themselves. Like I think it was the Attorney General of Guatemala. He, that's where most of the children from the invasion came from, was Guatemala, down in there, South America.
Yeah.
And he was going to come up. He mentioned something about child trafficking, and he was going on his way up here. But then they said he was in charge of the child trafficking, which I don't believe he was. So,
yeah, they have a very corrupt system down there for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, Bobby, what you're going to see is with Guatemala, Philippines, Haiti, and all of those are the sacrificial islands over the years where the kids mostly get trafficked. So all these politicians, lawyers, and other people that were involved with over the years, Clinton Foundation and all those, are now being exposed on the global stage. This is part of call it the movie, before we start exposing our own American leaders that are involved with the trafficking. We're going to see it on a world stage, which will lessen the shock when we see it on our homeland.
I'd rather see it on our own homeland first.
Yeah, people can't handle it. People still don't believe it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, they can't handle losing their job, let alone that.
One other thing for you, Ashley, I agree with the charcoal, but also a cold plunge, 40 degrees or less.
Okay, I'll have to go up
40
north
minutes.
where there's still snow, and
I got snow up here.
there ain't any of that in Florida, guys.
Oh, they do. They have them in spas in Florida.
Yeah, activated charcoal.
Oof.
All right, guys, I'm going to go to bed.
Good night. Good night. Good talking to you.
Bye, Mike.
Rob, what things did we miss, Rob, on the intel list?
I can't really think of anything.
Well, Val's got a list. We're going to bring it up. Okay. Let me see it, honey. What did you send, Mike?
Well, I got to get up at 6 a.m, so.
Uh-oh, you're out too.
Yeah, I got to take the wife's car in to be repaired and then drop my daughter off at her work. So 6 o'clock is not the same as what it used to be. But good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah, I hear that. Good night. Good night.
Yeah.
What about the stock market? You guys losing money?
No, that's a sucker's game. Don't have any money to lose. How about you? Are you guys losing money?
Oh man, I was smart and put all my stuff, took it out of actual stocks and just put on the sideline. So when the stuff tanks, it won't impact me. And then when it comes down, I'll just move it over back to the things I was investing in.
Did you move anything into XRP?
We've been having XRP before it was a penny.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get this, I'm on X, and then I get contacted by MTG or whoever it is.
Yeah.
Posing as MTG,
yeah,
telling me.
Be careful about MTG. Be careful.
Yeah, watch out for those. Yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything with
A
it.
lot of them are scams that they use celebrity names to.
If you guys really want to invest in XRP, Valerie and I will show you how to do it where there's no scam. You know, it's very simple. It's a very simple process. You know, and And back in the day when we were doing it, the banks weren't allowing us to move money over into these crypto mint locations, and it was such a pain. But now they're kind of more open to the idea, and we could probably do a episode on XRP in the future. I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get some financial guys on here and an XRP guy on here. We were actually trying to get the Ripple CEO, so we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to hear more about it myself.
Susan, what's the update that we didn't talk about yet? Go ahead.
Oh, well, let's see. You guys were talking earlier about these corrupt judges and everything that's been happening with the protesters, and in a rebuttal to that, I think Trump put out an executive order. Let me see if I can find that will kind of take care of that, which is in a nutshell. Let me see. I'm going to find it here real quick so I can. Okay, ensuring the enforcement of Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65C. And just in a nutshell, in a recent weeks, activist organizations fueled by hundreds of millions of dollars in donations and sometimes even government grants have obtained sweeping injunctions far beyond the scope of relief contemplated by the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Of course, the corrupt judges are in line with that, functionally inserting themselves into the executive policy-making process and therefore undermining the democratic process. The takeover is orchestrated by forum shopping organizations. So basically what this does is it's going to set up a precedent for them to have to come up with funds in order to throw these kind of tort suits out. So they have to come up with a fund to back up their suits in case they lose, so that the taxpayers don't pick up the bill. That's kind of a neat little policy. So that's an executive order that kind of went out in rebuttal to all that's been going on out there. That should take care of some of it anyway.
That's good news.
Very good news. Yeah.
Yeah. They are undermining our democracy.
Oh, and yeah, and just burning up the courtrooms. And they have to put up the money. If they're going to throw these suits out, they have to put up the money so that they can, back up what they can't, back up. So I love that, so that was a real smart way to handle that.
Trump hosted NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on March 13th today, reinforcing U.S. leadership in the alliance while pushing his agenda on trade in Ukraine. It's seen as a diplomatic win by those who value his assertive foreign policy. Trump.
Yeah. I just think that NATO and I think they're going to be undermining him. But that's what I think. Why else would you exclude the U.S. from that meeting? But
how about Dave Weldon being dumped as CDC nominee? Megeso? No one's really trying to find out why. But we need to find out the real secret why he got dumped.
Not familiar with that.
No senator wanted him in. He knows his stuff.
No senator wanted him in. Is that right?
That's right.
Wow.
But he didn't even get to go to the nomination.
Well, they're all tied into Big Pharma, I'm sure. I think Big Pharma is kind of like the CIA in a way, covert ops. I really do.
They went with this Children's Health Defense. Children's Health Defense wrote that the new CDC nominee, Dave Weldon's support for anti-vaccine theories runs long and deep. That then Congressman Weldon in 2004 asked the U.S. House Appropriations Committee chair to fund an autism research center that would be led by Dr. Andrew Wakefield. But I don't know. It seems like Wakefield was the first author in 1998 study published and later retracted in the Lancet that linked the MMR vaccine to autism in certain children. Ringing any bells yet? Weldon wanted Wakefield to head up an official autism research center. Boom. At that point, as far as mainstream media medicine was concerned, Wakefield was public enemy number one. And the experts had ranked him over the Coles as a complete fraud for suggesting the MMR vaccine was a cause to autism. And I'm here to tell you guys that I know people personally that have autistic children, and they tell me, Ashley, my kid was normal, and then after that shot, changed forever.
Oh, absolutely. I know
yield.
people too. Yeah.
I believe that. I believe that totally. And I think Big Pharma has long tentacles. And like I said, I believe they're into covert ops. I mean, they're going to protect their brand. And
Well, they have their own army, basically.
oh yeah, for sure. And
Andrew Wakefield, he was completely discredited when he came out with that. I mean, they just went after him lock, stock, and barrel. So I think he's been able to speak up more recently on all of that. That when they went out, Big Pharma went after him, and RFK has visibly showed documentation and aired it publicly that yes, there is a direct connection to vaccines and autism, that there is and then they have all the data to show it. So I don't think it's an argument anymore. I mean, the mainstream news and Congress can, piss and moan about it as much as they want, but the numbers are out there now. The data's out there. So, it's just a matter of getting it out to the public, and the public has still, divided in their belief systems. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge.
well, isn't certain school districts requiring shots? Your kids have shots? I mean, if I was a parent, I mean, I would be scared to death. I mean, I don't have an option for homeschooling, and yet my school won't let my kids in unless they have shots. And the way I feel about vaccine shots or what nowadays, I wouldn't trust them at all.